As you can gather, I'm not from the US, and every time I go to the US, I always think of this whoop whoop and cheering and stuff like that. It just doesn't happen. Who's had a good conference? Yeah, that's more like it. Thanks very much. So, as Brent said, this is really about you asking questions of these gentlemen here. We're going to go through and they'll talk a little bit about their companies and what they're doing. There's a real wide, diverse range of different technologies that can really help you in the enterprise space. So I don't want to steal their thunder. I'm going to hand over and ask them to give an introduction to them and their company. Lou, we start with you.
Hi, everyone. Lou Puschelberg, founder and CEO of CircuitStream. So we have three core business units. The first thing we do is we focus a lot on education, so helping people build capabilities and skills to develop VR and AR applications. The second thing we do is we do a lot of custom software development for XR technology. And then the final piece of our business is we build software that helps companies manage, deploy, and measure the applications that they are distributing.
Thank you, Lou. Gary?
Sure. Hi, Gary Orsolini. I'm the Director of Technology in Hewlett-Packard Enterprise for Pointnext. We get 60 seconds. I'm going to burn the first 15 to thank Brain Exchange, Jeffrey, Andrew, and the whole crew for putting this together. The first one was like 4 years ago, a couple hundred people. Now there's 1,100, allowing us to come together to basically educate ourselves, collaborate, and figure out, how to serve our customers and to basically delight our customers. So we, in Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we have a platform that is 20 years old. With Google Glass, the advent of visual remote guidance, we can connect any device, Android, iOS, securely to the enterprise. We also now are putting it on-prem with our hardware. So it's about connecting individuals, letting collaborate, and letting them drive solutions to the ROI, to the bottom line quickly, hopefully within months. So that's what we do at HPE.
Thank you very much. Johan?
Hello, my name is Johan de Geiter. I am the CEO of Iristick, and Iristick creates industrial smart glasses. In our case, they are connected to a smartphone, and we announced here at EWTS that we now have smart glasses connected to iPhones. Up to now, only Android operating system was allowed for smart glasses, and so we are the first one to come up with smart glasses that also connect to iOS devices.
Well done, guys. Rafael?
Hi. Hello. Hi, my name is Rafael Gutierrez. I'm the CEO of Jujotech. We're a software developer for smart headsets, and we care about the connected worker, connected people, and we have multiple platforms ranging from anywhere from remote assist to IoT analytics with alerts, and all of that being actionable.
Thank you, sir. And Brent?
Hi, I'm Brent Beyer. I'm the CEO and founder of the Peregrine glove and also the inventor. I want to say I'm really honored to get a chance to share with all you folks today some of our thoughts and opinions on the industry. We make smart gloves. Next year, first half of next year, we're releasing a easy-to-use glove for VR. That's just a drop-in controller replacement for any glasses, any VR headset that is compatible with Steam VR. And it works out of the box, but you can customize it extensively if you want. Prior to that, we've also sold thousands of gloves to the consumer industry as just a shortcut tool. So when people touch their hands, it makes shortcuts. We've done contracts with the US military for gesture sensing gloves back when they had a heads-up display that was about this big in a concept and probably had about a 15-degree field of view and was monochrome, so it's pretty special. And yeah, that's what we do.
Fantastic, thank you. And Matthias?
Yes, hello, yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Matthias and I'm product manager for VR solutions at Tobii Pro. So Tobii Pro is an eye tracking company. We do solutions based on eye tracking to analyze human behavior. We've been doing eye tracking for like almost 20 years now, and we have solutions ranging from like screen-based eye tracking to real-world eye tracking, and we can put it on a pair of glasses to test in real environments like factories and stores and basically anywhere. And then with the latest additions to like the Vive Pro Eye headset, where we provide eye tracking to that headset, we do have analysis software that can allow you to, simply by adding a Unity plugin to your scene, allow you to record and replay and analyze the data and the behavior data from people in that Unity scene. So getting eye tracking like heat map and visualizations and metrics from that scene. Yeah, pretty much.
So to me, it's a unique opportunity to speak to or ask questions of. We've got hardware providers, software providers, wearables, both glasses and gloves. We've got eye tracking, a whole kind of bunch, MDM, everything up here. So I really want you guys out there to ask some really tough, really hard questions to these companies, because it's an opportunity for you to ask questions, but also for them to learn. Okay, so I know beforehand the Brain Exchange team have reached out and have asked for questions, so we've got some that people have posted in, but I'm going to start with one question out to basically get these guys talking. But so the question is, gentlemen, looking from outside in, as in a provider looking into an enterprise, what do you see as the biggest internal problems the enterprise has to overcome to purchase and deploy your solutions? And I'm just going to take the chain and throw it in, and please just start answering. Johan?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a problem, but to have a successful project, you actually have to have the support of IT. I think that is the crucial one. Doing a pilot, you can do that still without the IT department, but if you want a successful project, then having the support and also the knowledge of the IT department is really crucial. I think most of our technology is meant to be an operational technology, so that means if it does not work, it affects the operations, and so that's the concern of the IT department. I think one of the crucial things is the IT department. Like I said, lots of companies did not start smart glass projects because they were only available on Android. They have an IT policy that strictly is on iOS, and so that was for them the hurdle to overcome in that specific instance.
Okay, perfect. Rafael?
Yeah, thanks. Let me add to that, if I may. I think, first of all, that you're spot on the IT barriers. Many companies actually are going through a digitization change, initiatives and so forth, but at the same time, there needs to be a translation from that digitization path to a mobile intelligent device inside of that ecosystem. So that will be the second barrier that I would add to that very good comment relative to IT. Thanks.
Yeah, and maybe tacking on, but from a different perspective. So I think hardware is one thing. You've got to get a PO unless you're loaning them out, but I don't think you're nonprofit. So from a software standpoint, it's maybe a little different because folks will find out about us and we'll let you use our software, free for a couple months and put it on any number of devices. So it starts with line of business. They don't need to go to IT because you can just get it out of the Play Store or the Apple and put it on your phones or your wearables and start using it. So the issue then comes in once they maybe like it or don't, whatever, but let's hope they do. Then they need to go to IT to move it out of innovation into maybe a larger scale pilot. And then, now let's get IT involved. Let's look at are you HIPAA compliant? What's your security procedures and so on? And have you been pen tested? So now we're getting more into IT. But ultimately, I think your point's right. One way or another, to go from kicking the tires to something that's a real pilot or a proof of concept, you're probably going to have to get IT to buy into it, yeah.
For us, it's often about just knowing our numbers and our customers' numbers, and making sure that you can start to see patterns, even though a lot of the use cases are all kind of a top layer of custom and non-prescriptive use cases. All of the patterns underneath, from reducing training time to reducing operational downtime, reducing waste, are starting to fall in kind of a set number of buckets. So we try to really, before writing a single line of code or getting development underway, just really understand our numbers and what the outcomes of those numbers are if we're successful. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, just understanding where you fit in those kind of measures of value.
Yeah, so just to be clear, Lou, you're talking about the kind of return on investment of what you're offering.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if I could add too, for some enterprises here, there's a lot of people that talk to this show that they're here to learn about VR or AR. There's a lot of companies here that haven't deployed it yet. There's some been doing it for several years. I would encourage you, don't be afraid to fail, don't be afraid to experiment, and in some cases, don't wait till the hardware is perfect, because if you're waiting till you have that magical, little pair of glasses with a 200-degree field of view and all this amazing stuff, you could be waiting a long time. And there's a lot of education that can happen between the vision of what AR and VR will be in the future and now. So to use a Canadian analogy, just get your stick on the ice.
Yeah. And I just think for our point of view, like for eye tracking, when we show eye tracking to people, it's usually like wow, this really gives me great insight into people's behavior, and like thinking about from the company's perspective to like be able to. It's often an issue with like putting the resources to spend that time on understanding the actual people, the workers or your customers, understand the customer journey through the eyes of your customer, to put that extra resource into that. Yeah, so actually spend the money on going a little bit further, going from the normal things you analyze into truly understand people's behavior.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really important that you understand that experience, what people are looking at, so you can really take both the software and to a certain extent the hardware and customize it and improve it for those end customers. Okay, so that was one of the kickoff questions. Again, thank you for the audience, and I don't know who sent these. There's two questions that I think are very similar. I'm not going to read one because it goes on a little bit, but the second one, and I'll summarize it afterwards, goes along the lines of, it seems to me, and those I've spoken to, that wearable technology, especially head-mounted displays, are having trouble make the jump from R&D, proof of concept, into enterprise readiness. What do you think about that? So when I kind of summarize that, and there's two questions, because I want to separate them out, is basically, is wearable technology just too early for enterprises? Number one. But number two, is VR and AR technology, and specifically AR technology, just too early for enterprises as well? There's a definite distinct difference between the two. I'm going to, again, throw my grenade back into the group.
Yeah, I'll say on the first one, for us, eye tracking has been a technology that's been not really been available for that many people. But now with the Vive Pro Eye from HTC coming out with eye tracking integrated, now suddenly it's like a very available and affordable product that people can use. And then we always try to provide a solution for people to easily record and collect and analyze data from that, to not having to go into the full like R&D development with using SDKs, just to provide a simple solution for people to get data out there. So for that, I think the time is now, making it easier now for people to use it.
Yeah, I don't think it's too early in any way. Like I'm sure there's many people here in the audience who have identified like really high value use cases and high consequence use cases. And I think that's where we are in the timeline. Like there's a clear kind of, it's obviously early, but that's what makes it valuable today for that part of the market, where if something is really high value or really high consequence, then it's worth investing in the technology to solve that problem. And as a company implementing either VR or AR, then you can look at the value of the problem you're solving and try to make a risk-adjusted decision of the investment that you're making in your hardware, in your partners and vendors. So in that case, I think if you put it into context, it's not too early at all. It just depends on the part of your business or the problem in your business that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, in the first answer, we kind of all agreed that IT might, present some challenges, but I don't always think they're the bad people. I mean, they're trying to help innovate in their companies. So I think there's one thing that might be even more of an impediment, and it's the way I see a solution, at least the way we see it. You typically need a piece of hardware if you're bringing that to bear. You need the networking if it's going to be a connected or collaborative device, and you need software, and that's kind of where we play. But there's a fourth thing that I think is a bigger culprit to the demise. It's not managing or being aware of management of change. Because we're bringing in these technologies, and if we're not managing the change process, then I think a lot of these fall. And so what you need is executive sponsors or somebody with enough clout to sometimes make a decision to just say, do that. You probably need a little bit of funding. But what I'm finding in closing off this thought is the places where we've been most successful, and we are selling to hundreds of customers at very large scale, at thousands of devices doing 40, 50,000 minutes of connectivity a week, right? So, but where those have been successful, there's probably somebody in that organization that's been a champion. Maybe they're in the innovation department, maybe they're in digital transformation, and they come here to these events back maybe 4 years ago. They see stuff, they get enthused about it, they start to promote it and evangelize it in the company. They start to see a little bit of success, they get a little bit of rope, they find success. I've seen people's careers grow as they've been successful. Think big but start small, but they're also taking care of the management of change to get other people to buy in and try it and help support them and systemically grow it. So I think if you forget about the management of change part, it's probably could be quell more deaths to this, what we're trying to do collectively, than maybe IT.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think if you look at the current situation, companies actually have a fairly simple business case. I mean, look at the use case of remote assistance, for instance. Just saving one flight of a technician to the other side of the world is sometimes making already the business case. And we, from our side, from the technology perspective, we come up with goofy features, zoom lenses, iOS, and so forth and so forth. And still, the guy wearing the glasses, they say, yeah, but now you are filming everything that I'm doing. So not managing that change, that type of concerns of people adopting this technology on a day-to-day basis is definitely one of the things to address. I agree with that one.
I think it's a great question. First of all, I will say that enterprise is getting ready to adopt. Also, I will say that the technology is now ready. The barriers on the technology, especially the headsets, that we hear the biggest complaint is actually cost of implementation. And we see that over and over. But the cost issue will not be resolved until we have a scalability in the marketplace. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg kind of problem. When it comes to AR, I will say that, in our case at Jujotech, we're using AR as an interface. And I will say AR is ready for some applications, but not for others. And in industry, for example, people care more about an overlay of information versus a full augmented reality experience. Because a field worker really does not need, many times, in many occasions rather, a full AR experience. So as a result, I think it will be evolutionary. I think to bring workflow, inspection capabilities, remote assist, and so forth, an overlay of information is good enough.
Okay. Let me add to that. I think indeed if you try to overdo things and have too many features and too much information, that's indeed one of the stumbling blocks. Just a simple indication of the thing that needs to be done is maybe sufficient as a first starting point. And if you have then people getting acquainted with the technology, then you can take the next step of the more advanced features in that respect. I think baby steps are in this at this stage the most important steps, I think.
Yeah. Just to add, I think less is more sometimes, right? So there's technology tools out there, there's headsets, there's software, there's interfaces, and as somebody in your enterprise, you understand the problems you're trying to solve, and I think your job is to get a clear understanding of the different tools and providers out there and how they work and how you can use those tools to solve your problem. And I think some of you might be trying to solve problems that today's tools can't really solve that well, and it's going to be frustrating. But there are a lot of problems I pretty much would guarantee in any organization right now that there's tools that exist today that will be of benefit to your organization. You just got to bring them together in the right way. That's what the solution providers are for, right? Hopefully.
Absolutely. I've just realized I've been really rude and haven't introduced myself. So you're probably wondering who this strange guy all the way from England is doing. So my apologies. Name's Mark Sage. I run the Area Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance. Hands up if you've heard of the Area. Okay, not as many as I'd like. So check out www.thearea.org. We're a non-profit membership alliance helping to accelerate the adoption of enterprise AR. So it's very much about delivering the thought leadership, looking at these barriers to adoption, which we're talking about, and working together to overcome them. So a whole bunch of the providers are members. We also have a whole bunch of enterprises like Boeing and Newport News Shipbuilding, ExxonMobil that have been speaking here and stuff like that. So my apologies for not introducing myself. Okay, now, I did warn you earlier, and I don't think anybody's asleep quite yet. I want some questions. So, hands up, who's going to ask the first tough question? There's a gentleman just there.
Hi, my name is Craig Fender. I'm from eBay Inc. And since you guys are all solution providers, you're all here in the same room, I have you captive. So I was wondering, if we're trying to get our own pre-existing KPIs into a real-time display, what would be your journey on getting that done and doing it securely? I'd love, I'm very nascent at investigating this space, but I think the problems I want to solve are solvable, and you probably have the answers.
I'll take a crack at that. So I'm going to speak from the software perspective. So obviously there are several components to be taken into consideration. So first of all, you have to figure out, first of all, which problem you want to solve, right? So assuming that you have gone through that journey, I will say you need also to figure out which hardware device is the right one for your solution. Unfortunately, you may have to do some legwork on that. There is no one shoe fits all here. And there are no standards in terms of how to do it. So what I can tell you is most of the customers that we have, they go through the following journey. First of all, they become aware of what's available in this market. Second, they actually pilot several applications. And most people actually do 2 or 3 headsets, 2 or 3. So I've seen as many as 7 software solutions. I'll be totally transparent with you. None of us in the software space have every solution. And the reason for that is this is still a fragmented market. So you may have to find 1 or 2 solutions to finally be able to hit your KPIs the way that you are looking at. Without us knowing what that is, maybe one solution is the right one, but maybe a combination of solutions may be the right approach. I think that there is a lack of integrators in this space. Most customers that we deal with, they would like to actually purchase from one person and be able to get a full integrated solution. And the last thing I will tell you is work with someone that can help you on your KPIs. We see it over and over that the common denominator solutions that are in the market usually address 60 to 70% of the KPI needs. But working with a partner and a supplier, they may be able to take you all the way to the end line, if you will. Hope that's helpful to you.
Hey Craig, I just wanted to ask if you could elaborate a bit more on your question, because I think it's interesting. So what I took away from that was getting your KPIs securely into wearables and HMDs. What do you mean? What's the goal?
So, yeah, eBay.com is a pretty big website. There's each of those features that you encounter on the website are behind pools, and those pools connect to each other through a software layer. Pool to pool, there'll be a long dependency chain. Oftentimes, the journey of an incident commander like myself, when there is an incident where it's not obvious what's broken, we have to surf that dependency chain and all the metrics per pool to find out which or what has broken or is starting to not perform properly along that chain. What I'm attempting to accomplish is to see something, and to the other gentleman's comment, we're pretty sure HoloLens is the way to go for the field of view. What I'd like to do is take all of the movie theater size screens that I have in the room where we have to command an incident and condense that into a virtual display that would show me the entire workflow of a feature set on our site so that I could rapidly find out what the cause is and reduce time to restore as well as time to detect.
Interesting. Okay. Well, one thing you may want to have a look at, and I don't know if this will solve your specific problem or not, but there's an open standard called XAPI, which is used for pushing data, and it integrates with a lot of other systems outside of XR devices. So again, I don't know if that would solve the problem, but XAPI may be a good solution for securely pushing your data through.
Do you know if anyone is integrating with PromQL as a metric standard or Grafana or data sets like that?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. And I want to kind of follow the theme around standardization to a certain degree now. One of the things we've been doing in the area just recently is setting up initiatives around interoperability and standards. There's a whole bunch of kind of workshops that we're looking to run around the world. And the question for the kind of team here is, do you see standardization in AR development process to allow for uniform growth across the board versus each kind of product being built on its own type thing? How important is standardization, to summarize?
Yeah, I'm just thinking for the VR space, like where we are now. I mean, for us to trying to, if you have an environment, we're trying to like record and replay everything that happens in that environment to be able to give you the most insight into what a person did in that. And for that, like if we can have a simple standard that, all the interaction, all the movement like systems and all these kind of things, and only one way to do like eye tracking, for example, so you can have like as many headsets as possible into as many environments as possible. Those kind of standard there would be really beneficial to enable more people to use the solutions.
I think that the pure reality at this point in time is that there is no standard, dominant standard in the market. And I think that if you look at individual solutions that are currently available on the market, it's not so easy, of course, to find a common denominator at this point in time. Now, that is not to say that it is not going to happen in the future, but at this point in time, unfortunately, for most of the companies here on stage, but also there in the room, I think at this point in time, you will have point solutions and you will have a project-specific implementation at this point in time. Now, waiting for the standard is maybe not a good advice because the learning of doing that project is, of course, very obvious. And so start even with the point solution instead of waiting for the standard to come up, I think is the current situation. However, I would like to have a standard, but at this point in time, I don't think there is a dominant one in the market.
On the software side, I think the closest approximation to that would just be APIs. So many of the solutions provide maybe an end-to-end delivery of connecting a device to people multi-point or even peer-to-peer anywhere in the world. But as folks say, what can I deliver when I connect with folks if I have a document that I want to share with them? And so basically, if you have APIs that allow maybe your solution to reach out to a document repository and bring that solution to bear, then I think that makes your application extensible. And most of the applications purport, I think, would be to have extensibility through APIs, REST APIs, or whatever. And I think that's the closest we get, is to making the solution a little bit more adaptable to doing something that potentially we didn't inherently build into the core functionality, so make it extensible that way.
For development standards, I know we use OpenVR and OpenXR. Brent on the panel, I know they use it as well. So if you're using any of the major 3D engines, then OpenVR, OpenXR are great standards to let you build across most of the major hardware platforms. So just want to throw that one in there too.
Yeah, if I can give a real example that just happened today. So we had someone saw our glove yesterday, and I told them in 15 minutes or less we could have it working with any Steam VR program. They didn't really believe us, so they called our bluff and they brought their program to the show floor on a USB flash drive and said, here. It's like, oh, okay. We stuck it in, installed their program, and in 7 minutes they were using our glove in their program. But we could not have done that without the standard driver setup and OpenXR standard set up by companies like Valve and others. But that allowed us to immediately integrate with them because we made our product part of that standard.
Thank you. Just wondering if you got your crystal ball out. So I understand there's some standards, but there's some standards kind of missing. Where does the ecosystem need to be for those standards to be able to develop? Anybody fancy doing a crystal ball answer to that?
We need more time, basically, right? I think the API answer is probably the right one. And aside from that, I think we may need more time to develop common denominators.
A higher level than APIs I thought about too is for on the software side, the standardization is your app in the Play Store? Is it in the Apple Store? I mean, can you just get it and install it and use it? I haven't seen a lot of, apart from HoloLens, I believe it's on Windows Mobile or Windows 10, I haven't seen a lot of the wearables running yet on that other than, and again, if they were here, I haven't seen them, but you've got the OSs because they make it so easy to get the apps. And so I think that's a level, at least from the software side, that presents a level playing field. I know it's much different on the hardware side, and I love your story about being able to delight a customer potentially very quickly.
I was a little nervous, but it worked.
Secret to a good trajectory. Good for you.
Okay, let's take another question from the audience if we can.
Randy Nunes, Ford Motor Company. I think one of the challenges we have as end users is the volatility of the market. So over the last few years, we've seen some companies come and go. And so if we are going to invest significant amounts of money and the company's not going to be in business in 2 years, then that puts us in a precarious situation. What can you do as service providers to sort of give us some options that we might have in case, and also the cycle times are ridiculously short for, in 2 months there'll be a company that's better than your company, and in another 2 months your company will be better than that other company. So how can you set up an environment that allows an enterprise to take advantage of that without the kinds of risks that come with those types of cycle times?
Thank you, Randy. That's $1 million question. If we knew the answer, we'd all be multimillionaires, but I'm going to pull it out there. Go for it, guys.
A different way to maybe answer that question, and it was alluded to, I gave a presentation at HP Discover, and I came up with a crazy analogy because we had just celebrated, my wife and I, the birth of our first granddaughter. And I started thinking about our kids, and I thought, when you have your children and they grow up, there's so much rich experiences of learning how to parent, and my wife and I did that, and wouldn't trade that for the world. And it's the difference, and my analogy is this, is if you jump in later in life and maybe you didn't have kids, but you suddenly inherit a kid at maybe when they're 15 or 16 years old, all the things you don't learn. So I would say maybe it's not that that company might come or go, but what did you learn by jumping in and learning about the experiences of what it takes to deal with technology? So maybe don't get too far out on and buy 1,000 units of a device, but get in, experiment, learn. What do you learn about the devices, the software, the networking, the challenges, the management of change? Grow up with this, because this is not going to go away. This is going to happen eventually. It's not maybe happening as fast as we all would like it to, but it's going to happen. It's going to be the reality of the way we live and breathe. So if in an enterprise you're trying to harness the power of this evolving, chunk of technology, jump in, get your feet wet. Sometimes you got to pick right? But learn along the way, so when that next great thing comes along that you should jump on, how would you know it's great if you haven't experienced in your own environment what's good and what's not good? So my encouragement is get started, get in, learn, and companies are going to come and go, but that's the reality of the evolution of this industry.
Sorry, just...
I think this is a very interesting question, and it's probably a question that every large enterprise is asking every single day. I want to tell you this from a different angle. Let's take a look at the ecosystem right now. RealWear have raised close to $100 million. I think that they're here to stay. Vuzix is a public company. You can track that. You have people like Lenovo, Toshiba, and others. All of those companies are not going to go out of business, okay? So I'm going to make the argument back to you that I think that on the hardware side, you have choices to make, and you shouldn't be scared that one of those companies is going to go under. That's point number one. If you look into the software side, I think that you will see more and more more and more integration from the software players. And what I will tell you, because we are in a small company, that on a large deployment, and by the way, we have Fortune 1000 customers, for example, it will be very easy for you to put in a contract that if the company goes under, you get the source code of the product. And that will diffuse 100% your concerns of deployment. Those are the options on the table. Certainly a challenge, but don't be afraid to jump into the pool.
Okay. I'd like to take another question from the audience. We've got, 4 minutes 40, so another question, anybody? No? Okay, let me pick another one off here. So I think this kind of question has a number of themes into it, and again, this was from the audience. So what best practices are you implementing to keep the user safe during wearable use? Okay.
Yeah, I can just start off with that one, because we do have some, in VR, with our solutions, people usually do they kind of studies and research about their scenes and concept stores, in manufacturing and everything, and they bring in people from the outside, maybe not used to using VR, and we have customer cases where, they're not used to using VR, and they get motion sick, and then it ended up with a company not using VR anymore because there was the customers didn't like it. So from that point of view, I think it's very important to always understand where people are coming from and ease people into it, maybe get them used to it a little bit so that they can safely use the scenario, and then it becomes successful for everyone. So not just throw people in there, just give them a little bit of time to ease into it and then do the task they're supposed to do.
Yeah, our experience is that if you implement large projects in large companies, then you typically have to pass these standard health and safety committees, and that's what we should do as an industry. We should not define our own standard, but just follow the flow. It lowers the barrier of introducing this new technology, and that's what we experience. So standard health and safety policies are at this point in time already in place. Let's try to follow them. And let's try to take that barrier away when implementing this project.
I agree. And we have a safety committee within the area, which is actually chaired by Brian Lachlan, or co-chaired, and Brian might be here from Boeing. And actually getting many of the enterprises together to talk about the safety issue. We've developed an infographic which is available to download on the issues or potential risks of wearable devices, but also some of the benefits. And then we're building kind of almost like a template to allow safety managers and people doing AR projects to put all the information in. So it really is, to a certain extent, an education. Is that change? We're back to that change management piece. I think once the safety managers are engaged, and there's some best practice developed, then they're happy and they actually see it as a real benefit to their organization. Cool. Any other comments on that? Right, let's try and do one last one. So again, my experience of working with enterprises is that they just want a solution, okay? They just want something that works and solves their problem. So how do you ensure that a kind of full end-to-end solution, we have lots of different players in this bit, really adds value? And how do you work with all the different kind of partners to ensure that happens? Tough question, 1 minute 26. It's all yours.
Yeah, I think at this time in state of the industry, it is a challenge because there is no large integrating party that combines all these different elements. And so sometimes it's up to the company themselves to solve that question. I see more and more projects where there are industry integrators, I would say, that combine all these elements. So, but that is very early days at this point in time. Most of the time we see that the good project and the champion companies are doing lots of these integration of these entire chain of the solution themselves at this point in time.
Just be really honest about what we can do and can't do. Make sure the part that we do works really well. And if there's something we don't know how to do, try to have at least someone you can point them to. Like if we need them to make, say, content, we might send them to someone like Circuit Stream or something like that. So it's just doing our role well and knowing hopefully where to send them and help them for the parts we don't do.
Yeah, from us, it's we also have like compared to selling hardware and software, we also have like a service, like consultative business where we help customers develop methodology or like do studies and get insights and analyze data. And either they learn it themselves later on, or but that's the way for us to actually make sure that people get value out of it in the end, and that it doesn't just end up on the shelf somewhere.
Okay, so I think it's important to understand it's a change management and an IT problem, and putting that infrastructure in place, connecting with the kind of correct stakeholders throughout the organization at the earliest stages, and managing it as that kind of change piece is really important. Okay, we have the red flashing light. I want to thank all of you very much for all your insight and input. It's a tough gig, the last one of the day, but I think you've done a really great job, and thank you for all of the information and knowledge. So, we can give a round of applause for these.